Delivering darkness. I started my job as a pizza delivery guy the summer after college. It was supposed to be temporary, just something to keep money coming in while I figured out the next step in life. I rang the doorbell twice, per instructions, then stepped back onto the sidewalk, holding the pizza bag tightly. Minutes passed, no movement, no sound except for the night wind rustling dead leaves. The silence grew heavy, oppressive. I called out softly, "Mr. Reynolds?" "I'm your delivery guy." No answer. I checked my phone but had no signal, typical for the area. The man had specified to wait outside as it was dark inside. I assumed it was because the house probably had no electricity or something similar. Suddenly, I thought I saw movement near a window, a shadow. My breath hitched, and I squinted toward the porch. A figure stepped out of the darkness toward the gate. He looked smaller and frailer than I expected, an elderly man, hunched, wearing tattered clothes. His face was pale in the soft streetlight, eyes dark and unfocused. "Hi, Mr. Reynolds, I have your pizza," I said, forcing a friendly tone. The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Come in," he said with a voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated. "You wanted me to wait outside?" He shook his head. "Come, just for a minute." Despite the warning instructions, something about the man compelled me to follow him. Inside was darker than I imagined. The weak light from the porch was swallowed by thick shadows. The smell of damp wood and something else, something metallic, hit me. He guided me down a narrow hallway lined with faded, peeling wallpaper. At the end was a living room dominated by an ancient armchair and a fireplace cold and empty. He motioned for me to sit. The silence was suffocating. I set the pizza bag down gingerly. "Why do you live here all alone?" I asked. He chuckled, a dry sound that filled the space unpleasantly. "Not alone," he said. The hairs on my arms stood up. I looked around but saw only a threadbare rug and a cracked window. "Who else is here?" I pressed. The man leaned in closer. "The others." Then the whispering began. Soft voices, almost like a breeze but carrying words. I couldn't make them out clearly, but the tone was urgent, demanding. I felt a cold wave hit my chest like invisible hands squeezing tight. I turned to leave, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before me. Frantic, I bolted for the door. Outside, the world felt unreal, too still. The moon was gone behind thick clouds. I sprinted down Willow Creek Road, heartbeat pounding in my ears. Behind me, soft footsteps echoed. I dared a glance back. No one. I reported the experience to my manager, but was dismissed. Night shifts could mess with your mind, they said, but I couldn't forget. The messages started on my phone again from unknown numbers. "Come back. We're waiting." I tried changing numbers, blocking callers, but the nightmares persisted. The company I worked for, Papa's Pie, was an ordinary chain store with a little sect of the city's outskirts as its delivery zone. I knew all the streets and shortcuts, and I prided myself on speed and friendliness. But one summer night, everything changed. One night, I caught sight of the same frail man near the pizzeria's back alley. I confronted him. He laughed and whispered, "You belong to us now." My vision blurred. I collapsed. I don't remember how I arrived at my apartment, but at 3 a.m., my phone rang. A cold, breathy whisper said, "Your delivery is overdue." I looked out the window. He stood below, staring up with empty eyes. I locked every door and window, but the feeling of being watched never left. The next day, I decided to take action. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I went to the police station, hoping they would take me seriously this time. I explained everything. The strange man, the whispers, the messages. Detective Sarah Mitchell listened intently, her brow furrowed. You said he lives at 1432 Willow Creek? Yes, I replied, my voice shaky. He's been watching me. I can feel it. Let's take a look at the house, she said, standing up. We'll see if we can find anything. We drove to Willow Creek, the tension thick in the air. As we approached the house, I felt a knot in my stomach. The place looked even worse in daylight-shuttered windows, overgrown weeds, and a general air of neglect. Detective Mitchell knocked on the door, but there was no answer. She pulled out her flashlight and motioned for me to follow her around to the back. The backyard was a mess of weeds and broken furniture. A dilapidated shed stood at the far end, its door hanging off its hinges. "Let's check that shed," she said. As we approached, I felt a chill run down my spine. The whispers returned, faint but insistent. "Help us! Help us!" Detective Mitchell opened the shed door, and we stepped inside. The air was stale, filled with the scent of rot. Old tools lay scattered about, but what caught my eye was a series of photographs pinned to the wall. They were pictures of people, some smiling, some looking terrified. I recognized a few faces from the neighborhood. "Who are these people?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Detective Mitchell examined the photos closely. "I don't know, but we need to find out." We left the shed and returned to the house, determined to find Mr. Reynolds. As we searched the rooms, I felt a growing sense of dread. The house was empty, but the atmosphere was thick with something unnameable. In the living room, I noticed a door slightly ajar. I pushed it open, revealing a dark staircase leading down into the basement. "Should we go down there?" I asked, my heart racing. Detective Mitchell nodded, her expression serious. "My name's Nate Collins, and this is what happened on the longest night of my life. It was a Thursday evening, about 10:30 p.m. The heat from the day was lingering, but the night air was starting to cool off. The streets weren't very busy except for the occasional late shift worker. We need to know what's down there." We descended the stairs, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was dimly lit, filled with old furniture and boxes, but in the corner I saw something that made my blood run cold. A small, locked door. "Do you have a key?" I asked, my voice trembling. Detective Mitchell shook her head. "We'll have to break it down." With a swift kick, she forced the door open. Inside was a small room, and what I saw made my stomach churn. The room was filled with old photographs, newspaper clippings, and strange symbols drawn on the walls. In the center stood a makeshift altar adorned with candles and what looked like personal belongings of the people from the photographs. "This is a shrine," Detective Mitchell said, her voice low. "He's been collecting them." I stepped back, horrified. Why would he do this? Suddenly, we heard a noise from behind us. I turned to see Mr. Reynolds standing at the top of the stairs, a twisted smile on his face. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "Get back!" Detective Mitchell shouted, pulling out her gun. Mr. Reynolds laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the small room. "You think you can stop me? They're mine now." I felt a surge of panic. "What do you mean? They belong to me," he said, stepping closer. "You're next, Nate." I turned to run, but he lunged at me, grabbing my arm. I fought back, pushing him away, and bolted for the stairs. Detective Mitchell fired a warning shot, but it only seemed to anger him more. "You can't escape!" he yelled, his voice rising in fury. I reached the top of the stairs and dashed out of the house, heart pounding in my chest. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps echoing in the night. I sprinted down Willow Creek Road, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I could hear Mr. Reynolds shouting behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I ran faster, desperate to escape. I reached my bike and hopped on, pedaling furiously. The night air whipped past me, but I could still feel his presence lurking just behind. As I turned onto a side street, I glanced back and saw him standing at the edge of the woods, watching me with that same twisted smile. I made it back to the pizzeria, breathless and shaking. I burst through the door, gasping for air. My manager, Tony, looked up from the counter, concern etched on his face. "Nate, what happened?" he asked. "Call the police," I shouted. "He's coming for me." Tony's eyes widened and he quickly grabbed the phone. I paced the floor, trying to calm my racing heart. I had finished my meal break and was waiting for the next order. My pager beeped and the order popped up on the screen, a large pepperoni pizza to be delivered to 1432 Willow Creek Road, a small street at the edge of the delivery zone, bordering a patch of dense woods. When the police arrived, I recounted everything: the man, the shrine, the photographs. Detective Mitchell was with them, and she corroborated my story. But as the officers prepared to head back to Willow Creek, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. What if he was still out there? What if he came for me again? Days turned into weeks, and the police investigation continued, but they found no trace of Mr. Reynolds. The house was empty, and the shrine had been cleared out. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. I tried to return to normal life, but the fear lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, expecting another message from him. One night, I received a text from an unknown number. "You can't escape me." Panic surged through me. I blocked the number, but the feeling of dread never left. One evening, I decided to confront my fears. I returned to Willow Creek, determined to face whatever haunted me. The house stood silent, but the air felt charged with tension. As I approached, I heard a whispering sound, faint but insistent. "Help us! Help us!" I froze, heart racing. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me. I turned to run, but the shadows closed in, suffocating me. Suddenly, I saw him. Mr. Reynolds standing at the edge of the woods, watching me with that same twisted smile. "You can't escape," he said, his voice echoing in the night. I bolted back to my bike, pedaling furiously down the road. The whispers followed me, growing louder, more insistent. I could feel his presence behind me, always just out of reach. I reached the pizzeria, bursting through the door. "He's back!" I shouted, but the staff looked at me with confusion. "Who?" Tony asked. "Mr. Reynolds! He's out there!" I pointed toward the door, but when I looked back, there was no one there. Days passed, and the fear consumed me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was a shell of my former self, haunted by the memories of that night. Then one evening, I received a call from Detective Mitchell. "Nate, we need to talk," she said, her voice serious. I met her at the station, my heart racing. "What's going on?" "We found something," she said, leading me to a small room filled with evidence boards and photographs. As we reviewed the evidence, I felt a mix of fear and determination. I couldn't let this man continue to haunt others. But as we pieced together the puzzle, a chilling realization dawned on me. The stalker was always one step ahead, slipping through our fingers like smoke. Despite their efforts, the case grew cold again. The stalker vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of fear and unanswered questions. I tried to move on, but the memories haunted me. I often found myself looking over my shoulder, expecting to see the man lurking in the shadows. Nothing unusual at first glance. The customer's name was Mr. Reynolds, an elderly gentleman, presumably. The instructions said, "Ring the doorbell twice and wait outside. It's a little dark inside." That got my attention. I grabbed the pizza bag and walked out to my bike. One night, as I lay in bed, I received another message from the unknown number. "You can't escape me." My heart sank as I realized the truth. The stalker was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. Months passed, and the town remained shrouded in fear. I tried to return to normalcy, but the whispers never faded. I moved to a new apartment hoping to escape the shadows of Willow Creek, but the feeling of being watched followed me. One evening, as I lay in bed, I heard a noise outside my window. Heart racing, I crept to the curtain and peered out. Nothing, but the feeling of dread lingered, a shadow that refused to fade. From that day, I still remain thinking about it. The calls we couldn't answer, the voices we couldn't trace, and the presence we could never see but always felt. The darkness that lurked just beyond sight, forever haunting those who dared to listen. I preferred delivering by bike when possible. It kept me closer to the streets and made parking easier. The ride to Willow Creek Road took me through the suburban sprawls, then into quieter areas where houses were spaced out and streetlights grew sporadic. The sun was almost completely down, replaced by a sallow moon hanging low in the sky, barely casting light. As I pedaled down Willow Creek, an unease began to settle over me. The houses here were older, many looked abandoned or neglected. The road curved, narrowing, flanked by towering trees whose branches stretched across the black sky like clutching hands. My phone buzzed with a text from the store boss. "Be careful on Willow Creek tonight. Cops had a weird call earlier." I frowned but kept moving. I reached 432, a small, sagging wooden house with peeling paint and boarded windows. A wheat porch light flickered, barely illuminating the cracked steps. This was the kind of place that looks haunted even on a bright day. Thanks for watching. The veil between our world and theirs is thinner than you think. Each like, each share, each subscription strengthens the connection. Feed the channel before it feeds on you.